さん、こんにちは。今日もですね、ハピネスカタリスト、それからエデュケーショナルビジットデンマークの、ペタゴと話そうという形で時間を進めていきたいと思います。今日初めて聞いてくださっている方もいらっしゃるかもしれないですし、すでに今日5回目をね、ずっと通して聞いてくださっている方もいるかもしれないんですが、ちょっとね、簡単に自己紹介させていただきます。ハピネスカタリストという名前で、ライフコーチングと、それから企業研修ですとか、あとはいろんな幸せな生き方、働き方、学び方の探求しながら、デンマークがあって、デンマークのいろんな生き方、働き方から日本に何かヒントがあるんではないかなっていう中で、私自身もデンマークで行ってみて聞いてきたこと、体験したことを日本につなげるような感じでおります。今日一緒に話してくれる、デンマークのペタゴーの、マスからもマスの活動についても話していただきたいと思います。じゃあマスお願いします。
Social educator, it's also called Pædagog. That's Danish term. Social educator. And for the last 17 years, I've been working full-time in a youth center in Copenhagen, Denmark. And a youth center is similar to what you have in Japan, but not quite the same.But the age group is 10 years up until 18 years. I'm part of Educational Visits Denmark, and we organize study tours in Denmark for Japanese, mainly Japanese. And our special field is tailored to us. We can tailor a few days or a 1 week visit in Denmark to your specific interests. And you need to investigate or learn more about Danish society. This is a very good way to do it. We can either do it with a real physical visit. You can travel to Denmark, or we can connect you online. All right.
Yes,
in last week's session, we had a lot of questions. So we collected all the questions, and I'm going to try to answer them now and give you a few examples and show you some of the first questions were, how do teachers monitor children's learning? So how do they evaluate or assess the children's academic learning? Yes. So first of all, this is the side of the classroom where the teacher resides. And you see a regular old-fashioned blackboard next to a smartboard, which is a projector and a computer that projects Windows, basically a Windows computer projecting on that white screen, and it's interactive, so you can use it as a touch screen. The classroom, they're not all facing the teacher. In this classroom, they've set them up so they're useful for group work, and they've done that because most of the time the children will be working alone in their textbooks or doing group work. But during the beginning of the session and the end of the session, or the beginning of the lesson, the teacher will ask them to turn around and face the teacher. But most of the time they'll be working. That's why this is a useful setup, that they don't have to face the teacher all the time when they're working. Mm-hmm. So this type of evaluation or assessment is based on the teacher's experience with each pupil and their knowledge about each pupil. It's not it's not a methodized, it's not following a certain method, and it's not an evaluation method, but it's just general understanding, the teacher's general understanding of each pupil. And this knowledge that a teacher has is extremely useful, and it's by far, I would say, by far the best source of knowledge about how each pupil is performing academically. Rather than written exams that you have to evaluate, this is a very, very direct input that you get as a teacher when you're interacting with your pupils. you learn a lot about what kind of difficulties they have and how well, or which level they have already reached in their learning. Another method that has been promoted since at least since the school reform is to try to let the children self-evaluate, try to assess whether they think this is difficult and they don't know so much about the subject, or if they think they are achieving relatively well, if they've learned something, if they have acquired the skills. And there's some ways to do that. One idea is to ask the pupils at the beginning of the topic, when you start learning about the English alphabet, you ask them, how well do you think you know this already? Like a thumbs down, so that they should show, for instance, thumbs down, like thumbs not up and down, or thumbs up. So if you do that, you ask the children, please show me, do you think this is extremely difficult? You don't know anything about it? It's like, you already have a good idea about it, or you already know this. And then halfway during the subject, let's say they spend 4 weeks learning the English alphabet. So halfway, the teacher again will ask the pupils to try to evaluate themselves. How well do you think you're doing now? And then again, at the end of the topic, when they like reached the end of it, so how well do you think you're doing now? How well have you achieved?
このね、自己評価についてとてもちょっと面白いと思ったんだけれども、もし自分はすごくできてると思っていいねって思ってるけど、でも先生からしたら全然できてないって思った場合、ここにこうギャップが生まれると思うんだけど。
This method of letting the children give some kind of sign of their self assessment, of course, cannot stand alone. That's something that the teacher compares to his or her own experience and understanding of the pupils. Their idea of how they're doing is something that can complement the teacher's evaluation. It's only a complement. It's not a method that can stand alone. That it can generate a feeling of community and a feeling of not being alone. I'm not the only one who thinks this is difficult, or I'm not the only one who is kind of, it's kind of okay, but I could learn more. It might be embarrassing for those who think that they have difficulties. So the teacher has to be a little cautious about it. And if some children say, I don't want to answer, I don't want to show because it's embarrassing, you shouldn't force them to. So this is something that can, if it's used in the best way, it can generate a feeling of community, and it can kind of make it visible to the pupils who one of their potential helpers could be, because maybe their best friend or some of those that they usually talk to could actually be someone who could help them learn the English alphabet. Or the group of children who are very, very good already, I could give you different tasks, because you don't have to learn so much, because you already know, you already have acquired the skills. So I could give you different assignments, or if it's okay with you, I would like to use you as my helpers, because I'm one teacher and I have 28 pupils, so I don't have a lot of time to go around and help each one of them, but you could help me. You could be my assistant teacher sometimes.
デンマークは前にね会った時に話していた中で通知表がなかったっていうのを聞いたんだけれども、今も通知表のようなものは変わらずないですか？
Grades, when they get to the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, they do. At the end of each year, they get a written assessment, and they're using the same scale that they will be using at the final exams. So yes, at that stage, the children will know how they're performing in each subject. About the higher grades, yes, it's a methodized, it's a written exam, or it's different assignments. that the teacher evaluates and grades the children based on that. But in the lower classes, there's no particular grade. It's more like which range are we in the top range of acquired skills, or is the pupil in the middle group or the lowest group where they need a lot of help? This way of assessing children's academic learning, which is not a written exam and it's not very strict and methodized, but it's more interactive and it's more like flexible and has to do with critical thinking. This way of evaluating children's learning is very much based on something that we discussed last time. That was one of the questions last time, whether children fear their teachers. That's not very common in Denmark, that pupils are afraid of their teachers. And because they're not afraid of their teachers and they can discuss with them, that's the basis of this kind of interaction between a teacher and a pupil. And